Hey, thanks very much for coming back. I'm Reed Davis again, and we've been talking about a new way of looking at disease and a way to sort out metabolic chaos. Now, I told you that hidden stressors and dysfunctions are contributors to metabolic chaos and the result of metabolic chaos. So metabolic chaos kind of feeds on itself throughout the body. If you didn't watch the brain-body diagram, go back and watch the first video, okay? So HIDDEN, hidden, stands for hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy production, and the nervous system. And so, you know, I'm a guy that works in a clinic, and I teach a course in lab work. So we're going to talk about how the hormone and the immune system can be tested, what that tells us, and then what you can do about it. So there are certain markers. Well, let me just put it this way. There are certain things that stress will do to your hormones and to your immune system. They're basically any kind of stressor, whether it's mental, emotional, or the physical and trauma, or the biochemical and physiological things we talked about. They all will downregulate or downgrade your hormone and immune systems. And so, for instance, let's take a simple saliva test that you could run that would give us some clues about what's going on here. And once we get those clues, we're really looking at healing opportunities. So how can we fix the problem instead of just taking something like hormones or something just to boost the immune system? This is not about take this for that. I never treat the test results. It's always just what do they tell me about a person? So let's look at that. We know that people, let's take cortisol for instance. So you can measure cortisol, and what we find is that generally speaking, people under a lot of stress, their cortisol level would go up. It's called the stress hormone. Now it raises blood sugar, and it's also an anti-inflammatory and a painkiller. And it's usually accompanied with some adrenaline, you know, and other things are going on that make you able to handle stress. And so people who are under a lot of stress might actually, for a time being, how would you feel up here? You might actually feel pretty good. I know lots of people who in the past, they had 2 jobs, they had 3 kids, they were juggling all the balls just fine. They thought, yeah, man, I'm on it, I can do this. And feeling pretty, even though they knew they were in a lot of stress. But that just can't be kept up forever. Now I'm going to go ahead and draw that out there. But typically, as we start to dysfunction inside the body, remember, all of this is creating and contributing to metabolic chaos. And so after a while, people start to not be able to handle it. They don't feel the same. So around here, you're starting to have a diminished capacity to handle stress. You just don't feel the same. And your hormones are affected, and your immune system is affected. So you might have low sex drive, you might have low energy, you might have foggy thinking, you might start to not sleep very well, you might start to get a lot more colds and sniffles and even get sicker quicker than you did in the past. Basically, you know something's wrong. And yet, since normal like is here, and if you measure anyone here, you might actually look like your levels are high still. Or you might, you know, wait until you feel a little bit worse and you check and you find levels here. Well, that's why it takes interpretation. That's why we never treat the test results. We always look at a person's history, their complaints, how often they have them, how long has it been going on, and lots of things in the history of a person. We don't just look at test results and go, oh, here, you need some of this. That would be very allopathic or symptom relieving only. So we're just going to try to get as many markers as we can and look at the whole person, look at the whole picture. Now, before I get too far ahead of myself, what can happen a lot is you self-medicate here. You know something's wrong and you think you need more coffee. You start off with just a 12 ounce. Pretty soon you're on the Venti and you're getting extra shots of caffeine put in there and stuff like that. Well, that might get you through the day, but then you come home and you don't feel like playing with the kids anymore. You can't stay up and watch a movie with your spouse or whatever it might be. You might, though, be wired up and need some more self-medication. People do a lot of alcohol when they start to come down, or they're going to do something else to help sleep. But then what happens? They wake up in the middle of the night because their blood sugar and their cortisol levels are really getting haywire. And so you've got sleep problems, energy problems, you can't get your work done, can't think straight, lots of stuff could be going on. And it just gets worse from there. Because so far all we've talked about is like mental, emotional stress, physical stress. When you start getting and considering other stressors in the environment, the poor quality of air, of food, all the chemicals and things that are all around us, and other negative influences, you can really kind of go downhill fast. Now, you can get easily to the point where you just don't know what to do anymore, and you start seeking outside help. On the medical side, there are things you can take again that are going to relieve symptoms, but they're not really going to fix the chaos, the metabolic chaos. They're not going to correct dysfunction and return you to balance, homeostasis, into that state of ease that we talked about. And so, before we jump to any conclusions here, I just want to say that there's ways to start looking at what's really going on. They're going to give us clues about the underlying metabolic chaos, how we can set that apart. Then we can design, a program, something that's very holistic, that isn't just take this for that approach. So come on to the next visit and the next video, and we're going to talk about another test you might want to take and help sort out this metabolic chaos.